Before we begin, here's how to earn continuing professional education credit for attending this session. Gain valuable insights by attending the podcast, then complete the assessment test to download your certificate. To do this, follow these simple steps. Click on the link in your description to access the session. Create a free account and attend the podcast. After the podcast, take the assessment test and download your certificate. It's easy, and it's free. We highly recommend checking out our subscription. Let's get started.
A lot of people are afraid to take that leap of faith, but data speaks for itself. Like you rightly said, you haven't really come across somebody who has taken that leap of faith and has regretted it. In fact,
Right.
if I were to talk about data, the CPA Trendlines had actually released a survey wherein it actually showed that firms that have a niche, they tend to grow 2.4 times faster than generalist firms. So this is it's not just a passion thing. There's a strategy behind it too, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, and now let's get into the different tangent. Let's get into the mergers and acquisitions piece, right? Because you didn't because you didn't just build something from scratch. You actually went and bought a book of business.
Yep,
So,
exactly.
so what made you go that route?
Well, that was I was at that point where I was working, I was an employee, and I was building up a book of business, and it was getting to the point where I had to pick one. And if I didn't have the business I was starting up to a point where it could really support my lifestyle, didn't want to make a major change there, so I figured I'd look for a practice to buy. That's what I did. It's a kind of a solo shop. That guy was retiring, really great guy. Transaction went really smooth, but that's kind of what got me into it. I was able to quit my job, buy a book of business. I did have some background there, so it wasn't like going into a brand new field that I didn't know or understand. I still learned a lot, but that's what got me into it. I had to make a decision. I knew at this point it had been a couple of years, and I wanted to go the entrepreneurial route. So I figured, why not buy something and sort of jumpstart that?
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of We're Trying to Figure Out with Saul. You know the drill. Every episode, I sit down with someone who is doing things a little differently, whether it's accounting, business, or tech. Today's guest has one of those unique journeys. Someone who's pivoted from coding to accounting, found his niche in real estate, and bought his first firm to accelerate the ride. I've got Ryan Pulice with me, founder of a real estate focused CPA firm, someone who's built a business not just around numbers, but around passion, purpose, and smart decision making. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Saul. Really appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Now let's kick it off with your story, Ryan. I know you always didn't want to become a CPA. I gather in our conversation you had mentioned you actually started into computer science, right? So
Yeah. When I went to college, like honestly, I didn't know what I wanted to do. High school
so
math kind of came easy, so I just thought when I went to college, and I liked computers. I would mess around on computers, so I thought, all right, computer science sounds good. It's in the engineering department. Take a lot of math courses. Let's go with that.
all
That's
right,
that's about the amount of time and effort I put into it, because
all right, all
got
right. Well,
on.
so that kind of explains, that review into programming. But then, what made you jump your ship into accounting?
Well, as I started getting into the programming courses, I realized I hated it. It's just not my thing. I did well in the classes. I got an A in my computer science class.
Yeah.
I just did not like it. It's a bit too tedious for me. We're doing C++, which I don't even know if they teach that anymore. I think it's Python or
Yeah.
something. uh, so I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I thought, oh, business school would be good. I knew a lot of people in the business school, so I met with the people at the business school and asked them, "What's your hardest major?" They told me finance or accounting. Those are the two you want to go into. So I figured, okay, I'm going to try one of those. And honestly, think I talked with my parents and a few other people I knew that were already in the business school. And the one I remember my dad had said to me is like, if you go into accounting, you can get a CPA and then you're licensed, and that sort of helps create a barrier of entry to your profession.
Yeah.
So I decided to go with accounting. I enjoyed it. The classes came, everything kind of clicked for me.
Hmm.
Um, and I stuck it out and stayed at the time, which they are changing this now, but when I was graduating, you still had to have 150 credit hours. And I think a lot
All
of
right.
states still require that. So you stay for an extra year, get a master's. I did that and then got out of school and sat for the CPA.
Well, like you make it sound really easy, but it's really not that easy for a lot of people out there who are still pursuing their CPAs. But it's always it's always wild how these pivots happen in our lives, right?
Yeah.
So we got there, from computer science to CPA. That's a good journey. So when did the entrepreneurial itch actually hit you? What made you say, "Oh, I'm not just going to be a CPA. I'm going to be running my own firm."
Yeah. So there was a company I was working for that was being acquired. So
Right.
this was like 2013, 14-ish
Mm-hmm.
maybe.
Mm-hmm.
That acquisition went through, and I stayed on in the consultant capacity for the former owners. There were a lot of things that needed to happen and wind down.
Right.
In fact, it actually just closed out about a year ago. So there was like a 10-year period in there.
Mm-hmm.
I started that, but I also took another job. And as I started doing some of this consulting work, I had already been doing a little bit of, I started doing a little bit of tax work as well on top of the work I was doing for this former company.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was like, I really enjoyed that a lot more. And I wanted to do it, but I was a little bit nervous, like going all in at that time. So it was like, okay, one client and starting to do some taxes. If that one consulting gig goes away, what am I going to do? So I took another full-time W-2 job for a few years.
Right.
And I think it was about 2.5 years or so, maybe three. And I realized like I've got to make a decision, either go all in or stop doing the stuff on the side and focus on my W-2 job. And I enjoy the freedom with the entrepreneurial route. So that's what I decided to do. And honestly, it was the best decision I ever made. I would not go back. And
I love that. I love that.
yeah.
And looking back, like how did those early jobs and experiences shape how you run your business today?
Oh, there's a lot of impact there from, different things that I saw being in early on, like working for an accounting firm, and then even the corporate roles I had. Um, I prefer the smaller, so we're a small firm and probably intend to stay that way. Like we'd like to grow some, but we don't ever plan to get huge. I don't like the internal bureaucracy and stuff you have at larger companies. One of the reasons I decided to go on my own is I don't always like being told what to do, or at least not how I have to do something. Um, there's so I learned a lot. I was pretty fortunate. The roles I held before, none of them were bad. I had like a good mentor or mentors at each role I had at prior jobs in my life. So I learned a lot about just accounting in general and tax, and also just seeing a number of different ways to run a business, what
Right.
works, what didn't, or how it worked, and whether that would apply to me or not. So I was very fortunate in that regard because I had some good mentors along the way that helped me out and worked with me. I had a steady progression throughout my career, so you kind of see what it's like when you're new. You get in, you're kind of doing all the grunt work, but then as you start to come up, you realize how important a lot of that work is, and then how to manage people. So each role I held had played some or had some influence on shaping me to help make the entrepreneurial route more successful.
Do you want to earn CPE credit? Take this course of MyCPE ONE to earn free credit. Click the link in the description to get started.
Wow, that's great. In fact, everybody who has been an employee or who is an employee, they always are, and who have been with working with multiple people, there always is a time wherein wherever you're working, something happens and you're like, if I'm ever going to be starting my business,
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure this does not happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Uh,
So, what are your moments? Any of those moments that you can recollect that you have kind of like created a baseline that I will never let this happen in my company?
oh yeah. So there were times where internal corporate politics sort of blocked important decisions because
Yeah.
whatever, when you boiled it down, it tended to be some petty reason
Yeah.
that was stopping something important from moving forward. So I've told myself I will never let that happen. I like to get buy-in from like our team on any big decisions to make sure, because it's hard to look at certain things from your own perspective and see how it impacts everyone. So we try to get everyone involved. Now, if you're a large firm and you have over 100 people, giving everyone a vote on big company
Yeah.
decisions is not possible. You have to have a
Yeah.
committee and stuff. But with a smaller firm, you can at least get buy-in and let everyone know their opinion is being considered. So I don't ever want to get to the point where we are letting, internal disputes, whether they're personal or just, flexing or whatever you want to call it. We don't want to let that impede the company itself from achieving what it can.
Well, you may call yourself a small firm, but I guess it's small, but it may be unique in a reason. It has its own reason to be called that. Because let's talk about the niche, because this is something that a lot of accountants struggle with, and you found
Yeah.
yours in real estate.
Yes.
So what pulled you in that direction?
So for me, it was, as I started taking on some tax clients, I ended up buying a book of business from a guy that was retiring. Some mostly like a generalist, businesses, real estate, some basic just standalone 1040s. And as I, that was, or as I was kind of working through that, I started seeing some of the tax benefits of real estate. And it got me thinking, why am I not doing this myself? So that got me into the real estate investing. So I became an investor myself.
Right.
And after becoming an investor, I was like, I a I kind of went into as much as I could, just diving into that like tax area and really really learned it. It just, sometimes when you, like they say, when you buy a new car, you start to see that car everywhere. So like when I got started in real estate investing, I started seeing like these opportunities for a bunch of other people. It's just, I guess it was on my mind more. So that's when I decided, well, this is what I'm going to make my area of focus in. So that's what got me started. I still invest. I enjoy real estate. I go to different meetups and masterminds in my area. A few of them I present at and sponsor to kind of help others learn. But it's that investing kind of became a passion of my own. So now I'm kind of using that to help build my business because I enjoy it and I understand it. I think when you really enjoy it and understand it, you can add a lot more value than just say, here's the tax rules. Like a lot of CPAs could tell you that the tax rules for real estate inside and out. But when you actually invest, you see a lot of the other problems that they're running into that aren't just tax related or accounting related.
Yes.
There's,
Yes.
there's a whole bunch of other things that come up and you can speak their language.
True that. And in fact, I guess you brought two very interesting things. One was that, when you get into something, your mind opens up to a different perspective. Then you're able to see things that were there in front of you, but it didn't just connect until that moment. That moment when you started investing, then you started seeing everything, and you're able to see the potentials of tax savings and everything. You started thinking like a businessman.
Right.
And the second was that, when you're doing it yourself, you're also able to see the client side of it. So you're not just saying it for the sake of, okay, this is something that I learned, I know this is something that you could benefit from, but because you've done it yourself, you know the challenges that you're going to come through, and you have devised strategies not just for your clients but for yourself as well. So they're time tested, they're verified, and they work.
Right.
So
Yeah. Exactly.
very, very interesting. All right. But now that you're focused on that niche, right? So how has it changed your client relationships or the way your firm operates?
Well, honestly, it makes putting systems in place a lot easier
Mm-hmm.
because when you're seeing the same types of clients, like even like real estate's actually that in itself is somewhat of a broad niche anyway, because you have people investing in short-term rentals or buy and hold, you might have developers or so there's even sub niches within there.
Yeah.
But um it really you can kind of filter most most clients into a handful of different buckets, for lack of a better term,
Yeah.
where certain things are going to apply. Creating your checklists and just writing up your processes and stuff. A
All right.
large percentage are going to follow a smaller number of processes, and you're going to have deviations. And real estate investors also have other tax issues. They might they're also most of them are still investing in stocks, and they might maybe they have some kind of compensation plan that involves different equity with a company they work for, and real estate's sort of their side hustle. But a lot of like the strategies and stuff we do, you can use over and over, and just like anything else, the more reps you get in, the more you start to understand it, streamline it, you get more efficient, you find ways to make it better, more time efficient, and just a better overall experience. So that's the big upside to really kind of niching down.
Nice. And for our listeners, maybe they're still generalists or in a service buffet model, if you might want to call that.
Yeah.
So so what advice would you give to them to help them find their niche?
So I would start, look at what you have and think, what are the clients you actually enjoy working with? Like everyone that's working with a client base, they're gonna have there's just those A clients that are awesome. And a lot of it's
Yeah.
just personality. Maybe it's the work too. And then there's like everyone else, even if you don't have bad clients, most places have a few, but honestly, like in my experience, the bad clients, they might come in for a year or so, then they're gone, whether it's by their choice or the company's. Most people are, they're just looking to get some help and some advice, and you take care of them. But then there's always that set that are like really awesome to work with. Start with them. What do you enjoy doing for them?
Yeah.
And is there anything that interests you, like maybe investing in real estate, or maybe you work with some, I don't know, law firms or something,
Yeah.
and you understand it, and their operations make sense to you, and it just clicks, and you have a good relationship with a few of them. Start there, talk to your existing clients, just ask them things like, what are your pain points? Like, here, I'm doing your books and your tax returns, but like what issues are you seeing that are bothering you? Kind of just have those conversations with them,
Yeah.
and you might start to learn things like, oh, it might open up doors to other things you can do for them. And then as you build that reputation, or go out and find out where they are online to see if you can attract more of them, that kind of gets you going in that direction. Like you could start building up, and just build that focus out. It's going to take a little time. You can't really just flip a switch, unfortunately, but
Yeah.
the sooner you start, the sooner you're gonna see the benefits. And I haven't talked to anyone that made the change and has regretted it, but I think
Hmm.
a lot of people fear that, because I thought that for a while. I was like, well, I have to
Yeah.
keep taking all these clients because that's more money in the door. But sometimes that's not the best route long term. Might be a short term fix, but you look at the long term. I think the more uh, in depth you can go with clients in an area, the better off you'll be and them.
Access latest and trending CPE courses with my CPE One Unlimited Access subscription. Subscribe now.
Yep. And a lot of people are afraid to take their leap of faith, but data speaks for itself. Like you rightly said, you haven't really come across somebody who has taken that leap of faith and has regretted it. In fact,
Right.
if I were to talk about data, the CPA Trendlines had actually released a survey wherein that it actually showed that firms that have a niche, they tend to grow 2.4 times faster than generalist firms. So
Yeah.
this is not just it's not just a passion thing. There's a strategy behind it too, right?
Yeah.
So All right, and now let's get into the different tangent. Let's get into the mergers and acquisitions piece, right? Because you
Oh
didn't
yeah.
just because you didn't just build something from scratch. You actually went and bought a book of business.
Yep,
So,
exactly.
so what made you go that route?
Well, that was kind of, I was at that point where I was working, I was an employee, and I was building up a book of business, and it was getting to the point where I had to pick one. And if I didn't have the business I was starting up to a point where it could really support my lifestyle,
Hmm.
didn't want to make a major change there, so I figured I'd look for a practice to buy. That's what I did. It's a kind of a solo shop. That guy was retiring, really great guy. Transaction went really smooth, but that's kind of what got me into it. I was able to quit my job, buy a book of business. I did have some background there, so it wasn't like going into a brand new field that I didn't know or understand. I still learned a lot, but that's what got me into it. I had to make a decision. I knew at this point it had been a couple of years, and I wanted to go the entrepreneurial route. So I figured, why not buy something and sort of jumpstart that journey?
Very interesting.
Yeah.
But buying a business has its own things, and this was the first time, like you were like acquiring business. It's a beautiful journey in itself. But thinking about it is a good thought that okay, I want to buy a business. But did you uh, come across a moment wherein were there like moments in your buying journey wherein you're like, oh no, what did I get into moments?
Yeah. So the I the initially it started off slow, and I was looking
Yeah.
for a while and not finding anything that really fit the model I was looking for in terms of like the revenue, the size. I didn't want to buy something too big. I didn't want to go buy like a $2 or $3 million firm with a full staff and um, get in over my head, because again, this is really the first time I'm going that route. So I did get something, one person shop, but I closed on that in 2019, December
Right.
of 2019.
Oh no.
So 3 months later, COVID started, and everything got delayed. So I think
Yes.
that the tax returns weren't due until July.
Yeah.
No one was like sure what was happening in the world.
Yeah.
Taxes probably weren't at the front of everyone's mind. Now, fortunately, everything kind of worked out. The
Yeah.
broker we use kind of sort of told or kind of said like, a typical retention percentage is this, and I think we hit like exactly what they had said to expect from a good acquisition.
Hmm.
It ended up working out, but there was a period of time, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, did I do the right things? Like, what's going to happen if no one comes back, or who knows what's going to happen to the world? And, so yeah, there's a point in time where it's a little scary for a few months in there, but then things sort of started to stabilize and
True that.
carried
And in
on a
fact, I
little
think
bit delayed. And
yeah, it's and
then,
I can kind of like relate to what you're trying to say, because the continuing education side of MyCPE ONE started in 2018. So we were like an year into the business, but we were still not yet there yet. The first 1,000 days of a business are the main are the integral days, and then COVID
yeah,
hit, and we were like, oh my god.
yeah,
Yeah, it was a scary moment. But
yeah.
at the end of the day, everything works out. Everything works out. But
Yeah, and honestly, like for an accounting firm, you had the employee retention credits and PPP loans. Like
yeah,
once the dust settled and you realize, okay, the world's not ending, it
yes,
actually ended up adding additional services and
true.
being good for business. But upfront initially, March and April was like, what the heck is going on?
Yes, we are one of those generations who will remember this for sure.
Yeah,
So, unlike our grandfathers and great grandfathers who would probably talk about, I don't know, the world wars and the Spanish
right.
flu or God knows what.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
All right. So, but looking back, like you've done that route, you've been that route, you bought a business, you grew it, you are at where you are. But
Yep.
if you were to be looking back, what are the few things you would do differently if you were to be buying your second firm today?
I would have done much tighter due diligence.
Huh?
I did due diligence, but and a lot of this comes from, so I was just working with several clients who have bought businesses.
Yeah.
Like luckily, the guy I bought from, really straight shooter, good guy. We still stay in contact. Like, but I've seen from being on the advisor side where that's not often the case. Not
Right.
always. But there are things people hide stuff, and I would have gone in and done a much more thorough job, sort of picking apart the financials and pulling more support to substantiate um, revenues and things like that. I did the basics, what you're supposed to, but I would do if I'm doing it again, there'd be a much more in-depth due diligence period. But I'd also
Right.
probably go a lot bigger. So
Yeah. The word due diligence is something that, I really love to talk about because when I first heard about it, I thought, okay, so you got to just make sure that the numbers match up to whatever is said.
right,
But
yeah,
that's financial due diligence. But then later on, I came to know there's also legal due diligence. And
yep,
then later on, I came to there's also operational due diligence where you're seeing the cultural mix and you're gonna you're trying to make sure that the culture is right and
yeah,
all those kind of things. So
definitely.
I get that's really interesting. And culture actually it's surprising how it plays a very huge role in this entire thing. I mean,
Yeah, it does. It really does.
I was like, accounting today, I think it was accounting today which said that like one of three small firm acquisitions, because small firm acquisitions are like really tight. Small firms are like really tight with the clients and their employees and everything.
Yeah.
They kind of like fall short in expectations when it comes to cultural alignment or client turnovers, especially in acquisitions. So your smooth ride was, I would say, the exception, but not the rule.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my experience as well, seeing being involved in others from like an advisor role. They don't often go very smooth. So I
Yep.
was fortunate
And I
in that.
think I already have an answer to what I'm about to ask you, but I'll still go ahead and ask you that for anyone out there who is listening to this podcast and thinking about buying a firm, what is your biggest piece of advice?
Oh yeah, do not skip on due diligence. Make sure you cover all your bases, and hire professionals. Don't try to DIY it. If you're a CPA buying a CPA firm, you probably understand how to do the financial pieces. But like you mentioned, there's legal and there's other parts. Make sure you've got all the appropriate people involved. So
True that.
don't short yourself.
True that. And one part of due diligence that I was doing this webinar, and we had Sarah Sharp, who is a lawyer, and she's involved in a lot of M&A deals, and she's done it. And one thing she pointed out, which a lot of people ignore, is leases.
Oh yeah.
Make sure to check the leases. you
Yep.
know. So that's
Yeah,
really
definitely.
really critical. So let's zoom out for a second, right? Your firm today, it's clearly built around a niche, but it's also around your passion. So how does that shape the way you serve your clients today?
So I guess like right now, I guess when I initially started out, we sort of did primarily tax preparation, and that was it. We did a little bit of bookkeeping and other things throughout the year. We'd
Yeah.
do some tax projections and help our business clients close their books. But for the most part, it was transactional each year. Now it's we're more focused on like tax planning and advisory. We have an outsourced accounting group that looks more to do like they do bookkeeping, but that's like the basis and entry point. Right? We have an
Yeah.
outsourced accounting package and like a virtual CFO package
Nice.
as well. So we're really pushing more of those higher end packages because you can bring a lot more value to your clients that way. And when you're more involved, doing a lot more for them, like we've mentioned before, a lot of them, they have these pain points that aren't just like close my books and get my compliance tax filings done. And like, tax planning, sure, a lot of people they want to save money in taxes, but to do it right, there's a whole lot more than going into it than just moving the numbers around a tax return or checking a box for an election. Usually there's a whole bunch of documentation that is involved and needs to be done and handled correctly, which you don't hear about on a lot of like the tax gurus online. They leave that part out. So going that more trusted advisor route is really um, where our focus is now, and that's been shaped around just what we've learned, kind of niching down and building better relationships with the types of clients that we want to work with. It's much easier to kind of to do that type of work when you've established a good relationship with a number of clients and you really understand their business. That's because you have to understand their business to do that type of work for them well.
Well, the key term right there was the right clients, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, exactly.
because like as one of my in accordance with who is a guest to one of my other podcasts, she says that it's not only important for you to know who the right client is, but it's also important for you to know who is not your right client.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
that is true. But like, with all this going on, how do you juggle between firm operations, growth plans, and still staying true to your niche?
It's difficult at times. So a lot of what we do, or what we try to do, is really stay focused on technology. So
Right.
anything that can help us streamline admin or redundant type work, we do. For like the real estate stuff, to stay on top of just the markets and the news, I made a little AI agent, just like a chat GPT thing to help summarize news in markets for real estate.
Nice.
I just, it's different sources it goes to and kind of gives me the summary. And sometimes you just have to go check their summaries to make sure it's right, like when you read something.
Yeah.
But it kind of gives you a good place to go to for different articles and stuff. But yeah, just staying on top of the news for real estate in general, and then technology. And that technology could be from like the accounting operations, or even what like a lot of our clients are using. Like, a
Yeah.
lot of our short-term rental clients have tons of apps and tools out there to help streamline their short-term rental operations. So understanding their technologies as well as our own.
All right. Well, so like now we're like as we're coming towards the end, like I just thought I'd ask you that if you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice at the start of this journey, what would it be?
Do it sooner. I would have gone out a lot. I would have done I would have gone the entrepreneurial route a lot sooner. Back when I
Yes.
first had that opportunity, before that I took another job for like another 2.5, 3 years. Should have done it right away. Two, I would have found and focused on a niche right away. So get that earlier, because I still worked for a few years before going the niche route. So just, if you couldn't do it yesterday, so start today if you're still kind of
All
on the
right.
fence.
Love it. All right. So what's next for you and your firm? Are we talking expansions, more acquisitions, or just doubling down on
Yeah,
your build?
we're looking to expand. We have been expanding, and unlikely to have any acquisitions in the near term. We're going to focus our growth kind of organically on the client bases that we're our
All
client
right.
base that we're focused on for real estate. But yeah, our plan is to grow. So far, we've been hitting and exceeding our expectations, and knock on wood, hopefully that continues. I think it will.
All right.
Yeah, so that's it. And I also have been I host a podcast called the CPA Zone. So I've been doing that sort of a solo
Mm-hmm.
thing for a while, but I wanted to really start growing that. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've started doing some interview episodes, which are way more interesting in my opinion. And for me, they flow better. So I'd like to get a lot more educational content out there. So we primarily talk
Well,
about
from
tax and accounting for real estate investors.
well, from one podcaster to another, I will definitely say that podcasting is very liberating.
Yeah.
Apart from you learn something new every day. You are
Yep.
interacting with a lot of people, and you gain a lot of different perspective.
Yeah, definitely.
Even if it's something that you know about, it's just the talking that just kind of like opens your mind, just like that real
Yeah.
estate thing. Then now it's opening your mind to different perspectives.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I totally agree with that.
All right. So, last but not the least, if someone wants to connect with you, maybe they are in real estate or they're just vibing with your story, where can they find you?
So they can find us. We have a website. It's thepulicegroup.com. That's
Mhm.
THE, my last name, Pulice, PULICEGROUP.com. And
All
then
right.
check out the podcast. It's called The CPA Zone. You can find it on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, all the main podcast channels.
All right. All right. Well, we'll talk on that later as well. I know we have a parallel conversation going on that podcast, so we'll talk on that.
Yeah.
But I will definitely, Brian, this has been fantastic. So, from computer science to accounting, from side hustle to acquisitions, your story is a masterclass in purpose-driven growth. So, thank you so much for being here. And for our listeners, if you're thinking about finding your niche or just taking a leap like Ryan did, I hope this conversation sparks some clarity. So don't forget to follow Ryan, and if you like this episode, leave us a review, subscribe, and we'll see you next time on WTF with Saul. Until then, keep innovating in everything that you do. Cheers.
Access latest and trending CPE courses with my CPE One Unlimited Access subscription. Subscribe now